The little pink bicycle looked almost new, but the tiny hands holding it trembled so badly that everyone noticed before they noticed the tears. On a quiet afternoon in a small neighborhood outside Nashville, Tennessee, 7-year-old Grace Harper stood beneath a giant oak tree with a piece of cardboard hanging from a string around her neck. Her pale face carried a sadness no child should ever know. One after another, cars rolled past without stopping, until the thunder of motorcycles echoed through the street. A group of hardened bikers slowed down, expecting another ordinary ride. Instead, they found a child whose desperate eyes silently begged the world not to look away. None of them imagined that buying one little bicycle would uncover a betrayal worth millions and expose the powerful man who had stolen everything from her family. Before we continue, if you believe kindness still changes lives and that everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that may need them today. The riders belonged to a veteran motorcycle club known throughout Tennessee for raising money for children's hospitals and military families. Outsiders judged them by their leather jackets and tattoos, but those who knew them understood they protected people who had no one else to turn to. Their president, Nathan Brooks, noticed the little girl immediately. She wasn't trying to attract attention. She simply stood beside the bicycle with exhausted determination, as though she had already accepted that most people would ignore her. Nathan parked his motorcycle and slowly walked toward her. The other bikers remained behind, sensing something unusually fragile in the air. Grace never smiled. She held the bicycle tightly, as if letting go of it would mean losing the last piece of her childhood. The child explained with heartbreaking honesty that she wanted to sell her bike because her mother had not eaten in 2 days. Every dollar they once had was gone. There was no food in the refrigerator except a bottle of water and half a loaf of stale bread. She had searched through her room for anything valuable and discovered the bicycle her father had given her before he died. Selling it was the only idea she could think of. Nathan felt something tighten inside his chest. He had witnessed war, funerals, and unimaginable suffering. Yet hearing those simple words from such a young child hurt more than he expected. Children were supposed to ask for toys, not sell them to feed their parents. Instead of buying the bicycle immediately, Nathan quietly asked where Grace lived. She hesitated only briefly before leading the bikers several blocks away to a rundown duplex hidden behind abandoned storefronts. The yard had grown wild, the porch sagged dangerously, and broken windows had been covered with cardboard. It was impossible to imagine that anyone had willingly chosen to live there. Inside, the air was painfully still. Grace's mother, Rebecca Harper, lay weakly on an old couch beneath a thin blanket. Her face revealed exhaustion more than illness. She tried to stand when strangers entered, but nearly collapsed before Nathan gently helped her sit back down. Rebecca apologized repeatedly, embarrassed that her daughter had asked strangers for help. What Nathan saw around the room told a story words could never fully explain. Empty shelves, unpaid bills stacked neatly on a table, children's drawings taped to cracked walls, family photographs showing happier days inside a beautiful suburban home. Nothing about those pictures matched the poverty surrounding them now. Something terrible had happened. As the bikers unloaded groceries from nearby stores, Rebecca reluctantly shared her story. Only 3 years earlier, the Harper family had owned a successful construction company founded by her late husband, Michael Harper, a respected businessman known throughout Tennessee for treating employees fairly. After Michael unexpectedly died from a heart condition, Rebecca inherited the company. She trusted Michael's longtime business partner, Victor Langston, believing he would honor her husband's memory and help protect the business until she learned everything herself. Instead, Victor quietly manipulated company finances, forged documents, transferred ownership through fraudulent contracts, and convinced banks Rebecca had authorized every transaction. By the time attorneys uncovered inconsistencies, the business was gone. Victor had taken the company. The family home followed. Then the savings disappeared, paying legal fees. When Rebecca finally realized the full scale of the fraud, Victor's expensive lawyers buried every complaint beneath endless delays and technicalities. Soon no attorney wanted the case anymore. Grace had watched her mother lose everything one courtroom at a time. Nathan looked at the family photographs again. He wasn't seeing victims. He was seeing people who had been robbed. One biker, named Samuel Carter, quietly photographed the legal papers scattered across the kitchen table. Another member, Christopher Hayes, happened to own a security consulting company with connections to financial investigators. Before sunset, phone calls began reaching people who specialized in uncovering corporate fraud. Within days, surprising pieces of the puzzle emerged. Former employees admitted they had witnessed suspicious transactions, but feared losing their jobs if they spoke. A retired accountant revealed copies of financial records she had secretly kept after resigning. An office assistant confessed Victor had forced her to notarize documents she knew Rebecca had never signed. Little by little, evidence that had remained buried for years started resurfacing. Nathan realized something remarkable. Grace hadn't simply tried to sell a bicycle. She had unknowingly awakened dozens of people whose consciences had never stopped hurting. Meanwhile, Victor Langston continued living comfortably inside a luxurious mansion, appearing regularly at charity galas where newspapers praised him as a generous businessman. He believed the Harpers had disappeared forever. He had no idea that a motorcycle club had become interested in his past. Nathan never threatened him. He never confronted him publicly. Instead, every piece of evidence flowed directly toward investigators, journalists, insurance auditors, and federal authorities. The truth traveled much faster than intimidation. One morning, local news stations exploded with reports describing a massive financial fraud investigation involving Victor's construction empire. Investors panicked. Banks froze accounts. Employees began cooperating. Former executives accepted immunity agreements in exchange for testimony. Everything Victor had carefully hidden started collapsing at breathtaking speed. Rebecca watched the television in complete disbelief. For the first time since Michael's death, she allowed herself to believe justice might actually exist. Weeks later, the courtroom filled with reporters. Grace quietly sat beside her mother wearing the same blue dress she had worn the day she tried selling her bicycle. Victor confidently entered the courtroom expecting another legal delay. Instead, prosecutors unveiled overwhelming evidence collected from dozens of independent witnesses. Forgery, wire fraud, identity theft, tax crimes, corporate conspiracy. Each new document erased another carefully constructed lie. When the judge announced temporary seizure of Victor's remaining business assets pending trial, the courtroom became completely silent. Rebecca closed her eyes. She wasn't celebrating revenge. She was finally breathing again. Months later, the final judgment arrived. Victor received a lengthy prison sentence. Millions in stolen assets were recovered. Insurance settlements restored Rebecca's financial stability. The family business couldn't be returned exactly as it once was, but compensation allowed Rebecca to rebuild under a new company name honoring Michael's memory. The greatest victory wasn't money. It was dignity. Grace finally returned to school without worrying whether her mother had eaten. The duplex became a memory. They moved into a modest but beautiful home where laughter slowly replaced silence. Nathan and the motorcycle club remained close family friends. Every Christmas, every birthday, every graduation, the bikers showed up. Grace never forgot that the men many people feared were actually the ones who saved her family. Years passed. Grace grew into an intelligent young woman who studied law. She dedicated her education to helping families victimized by financial crimes, promising herself no widow or child would ever stand alone the way her mother once had. During her graduation ceremony, Nathan watched proudly from the audience. The same little girl who had nearly sacrificed her last treasured possession now stood accepting honors before hundreds of people. She never sold the bicycle. Nathan had secretly purchased it that very afternoon without taking it away from her. Instead, he repaired every scratch, polished every spoke, and returned it with a simple note reminding her that hope should never have to be sold. The bicycle remained displayed inside Rebecca's rebuilt office for years. Every employee who asked about it heard the same story. Not about charity, not about pity, but about courage. About a child who loved her mother enough to give away her happiest possession. About strangers who refused to ignore suffering. About truth that eventually defeated greed. Most importantly, about ordinary people choosing compassion over convenience. The greatest miracles rarely begin inside courtrooms or boardrooms. Sometimes they begin on a quiet sidewalk where one frightened little girl stands beside a pink bicycle, praying that one stranger will stop long enough to care. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still believes kindness can change a life. Your support helps keep these inspiring stories alive. Special request: before this story ends, please leave a comment with the words, "Kindness always wins." You never know who might read your message today and find the hope they desperately need. Grace often said that people remembered the courtroom victory because justice had finally been served. But she believed the real victory happened long before any judge entered the picture. It happened the moment a group of strangers refused to drive past a little girl standing beside a bicycle. That single decision proved that compassion is never wasted, that courage often arrives wearing unexpected faces, and that even when greed seems unstoppable, truth only needs one opportunity to be heard. The kindness of a few ordinary people transformed the future of an entire family, reminding everyone that the strongest engines are not the motorcycles that thunder down the highway, but the human hearts willing to stop when someone else is hurting. And sometimes, that one small act of stopping becomes the beginning of a miracle no one will ever forget.